we have been in a series on questions that Jesus asked. And we'll be wrapping that up in the next few weeks, and then we'll head into a new series then for this summer. And basically the way that I schedule our preaching thing is we usually do a series on the Old Testament, New Testament, life of Christ, and then a few years ago we started a theology session, and actually that's what we're going to be dealing with this summer. We talked about a year or so ago about what the Bible, what we know and what the Bible teaches about the Bible. And then this summer we're going to be looking at a series on the theology of God. Literally we're going to be talking about who is God. And right now the tentative title of it is the idea of the God who is. And we're just going to be talking about different characteristics of God and how that impacts our lives as a Christian in what we actually believe about God and to really know Him. So that's kind of where we're headed. This morning we're on questions Jesus asked, and we've been looking at a lot of questions that Jesus asked people, but there are also questions that people ask Jesus. And there's actually over 100 of them. And out of those questions that people ask Jesus, He only answers about 8. And this morning we're going to see one that He doesn't answer initially, but then He turns around and answers. And it's related to a woman, and there are a lot of great women in the Bible. Okay, there's a lot of awesome women that we have talked about through the years in the Bible, but this is one that is odd because we don't know her name. And there's some very, very unique things about this story that I think will help us understand God a little more, Jesus a little more, and will help us in our own relationship and our own faith. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read the whole story, and then we're going to go back through it in sections and point out some things. And then when we're done with that, we're going to apply it. While it applies to women, it applies to all of us. So there's some great lessons here. So let's jump in. Matthew chapter 15, here's what it says. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity. Now Matthew calls her a Canaanite woman. Mark calls her a Syrophoenician woman. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out loud, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word. And this was common. Like I say, he was asked a lot of questions, he didn't answer a lot. So his disciples came to him and urged him and said, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." And notice what happened. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." And this woman argues with Jesus. And she says, "Yes, it is, Lord." She said, "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. So let's now understand the passage, okay? First of all, one of the things that's unique about this passage is that it happens in Tyre and Sidon. So let me show you a quick map. This is the area of Tyre and Sidon. If you'll notice, the Sea of Galilee is down there in the bottom, in the middle. All of Jesus' ministry took place around Galilee and Jerusalem, with this exception. Jesus moves away from Galilee and heads up into this region of Tyre and Sidon. This was Gentile, Canaanite area, and that is significant. So let's walk through the story and let's try to understand it, the background of it first, and we'll put together some things I think that'll help us. So let's go to the first section. Leaving that place, he withdrew the region, so he was in Galilee. He heads up to Tyre and Sidon. This is pagan territory. These are not Jewish people, okay? These are the enemies, if you will, of Jewish people. And a Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out loud, Lord, that Master, Son of David. She acknowledges his Jewishness, even though she's a Canaanite. Have mercy on me. Show me hesed. Show me loving kindness. Show me generosity. My daughter's demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Now, here's what's unique. This woman has everything going against her. First of all, she's a pagan. She's not Jew. And Jesus is going to point this out. She is not of the tribe of Israel. She's a Canaanite woman. She's a Syrophoenician woman. She's a woman who is, if you will, anti-God. Her culture is. I don't think she is. But her culture is that. Secondly, she's a woman. In that culture, women were second, third, fourth-rate citizens. For a woman to approach a man and ask something of him was not politically correct. In fact, Christianity is one of the few religions and things that elevates the role of a woman. In this culture, they were suppressed. So, first of all, she's not Jewish. She's a woman, and she's obnoxious. She doesn't, it's not like she comes to Jesus and says, I got a little favor to ask of you. No, she makes a big spectacle of this thing. And notice what she does. She says, Lord. Now listen, that's significant because she's acknowledging the fact that he has a position of honor. And she has a position of submission. Lord, Master, Son of David. She's acknowledging his Jewishness, even though she's a Canaanite. And then she asks for something. Have mercy on me. Show me kindness. My daughter is demon-possessed. I want her fixed. So here Jesus is. He's in the area, and this woman who has a daughter with a great need becomes obnoxious and pushing in order to get Jesus' attention. And notice how bad it was. Well, first of all, notice Jesus' reaction. You know what Jesus does? Nothing. He just lets her rant. Now, I know that's sometimes a great marriage principle. But he just lets her rant, and she keeps going on and on and on. And the disciples came to him. So his disciples come to him and go, get rid of her. She keeps crying. Every time we turn around, she is there. Do something, Jesus. We can't put up with this anymore. And she just keeps coming. Some of you are like, yeah, I'm married to that, man. But we're going to understand why this is so important. And she just keeps coming and coming and coming. And the disciples are like, Jesus, you have got to get rid of her. And notice what Jesus does. He replies. He answers. And this is one of the few times Jesus does this. And notice what he says. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Now, this is an incredible statement from the lips of Jesus. And there's a bunch of reasons why. In the Jewish Gentile world, the Jews hated the Gentiles. They hated them. That's why the story of the Good Samaritan is so important. There's so many significant issues in it. They looked at them as the enemy and they despised them because the Jewish people, they were God's people. They were God's chosen nation. So they looked down on anybody that wasn't Jewish, especially the Gentiles. Often, the Jewish people called the Gentiles dogs. Because in that culture, that was a term of derision. That was a term of making fun of somebody. Here's what you need to understand. There are two words for dogs. One of the words has the idea of a wild animal. We would probably call it a feral dog. A dog that just runs around loose everywhere in the culture. So when the Jews talked about the Gentiles, they would call them dog, feral kind of animals. But when Jesus here uses this analogy here, here's what Jesus is saying. He chooses a different word for dogs. And the word that he chooses here has the idea of family pet. And here's what Jesus is saying. When you make a meal for your child, you don't take that meal to the table, and instead of setting it in front of your child, you give it to the dog. You don't do that. That meal's for your children. And so what Jesus is saying is, look, it's not right for me, who has come to save the Jews, to turn around and give it to the Gentiles. He said, I don't do that. That's not while I'm here. That's what's going to happen. But that's not, my first purpose is to come to my own children, the people that I have chosen. I want to reach them. This meal, this thing that I'm offering is to them first. It's not right for me to take that which I'm doing for them and turn around and give it to the dogs. You don't do that as a family. You make a meal for your children. Can you imagine me? We got everybody coming over today, and we got this great meal plan. And I look at them and say, okay, you guys, here, the potatoes and the roast, they're going to Lulu today. I don't know what you guys are going to eat, but Lulu is getting roast and potatoes today. I don't do that. Why? The meal's for my kids and my family. That's what Jesus said. I'm here to reach my chosen people. It's not right for me to turn around and give it to the family pet. And then this woman, with great respect and dignity, argues with Jesus. Because notice how she phrases it. Yes, it is, Lord. She said, no, Jesus, you're forgetting something. And she then makes an argument. She says, even the family pet gets crumbs that fall from the master's table. She said, I'm not asking for food. I'll take leftovers. I'll take the stuff that hits the floor. When I worked at a nursing home, I was in charge of the Eating Alternative program. And one of the things that we did is we tried to incorporate we tried to enrich the life of elders and elderly people. And one of the ways that we did that is we brought children, we brought pets, and we brought live plants into the facility. And we were trying to create an environment of life. And so one of the things that I was in charge of is we actually encouraged, once they went through a little bit of a process, we actually had our employees, our nurses, for instance, bring their dogs to work. And so, what would happen is this thing snowballed on us. And we had a couple of animals that lived in, we had a potty-trained rabbit that just hopped around the facility, actually went to a litter box. We had a talking parrot that would talk to the people. It was amazing. So anyway, it was a fun program to run. But one of our biggest problems was when the people would eat lunch, they would take stuff off their plate and put it in the pocket. And after lunch, the dogs knew which rooms to go to. And so these dogs literally after lunch, they just had this pattern of going to all these people's rooms and getting fed. And what happened was we ended up with a whole lot of overweight animals. So we had to go back to the people and tell them they couldn't do it. This is what she said. She said, you know what? Just give me the crumbs. Just give me the leftover stuff. That's all I'm asking for. And Jesus says to her, woman, you have great faith. Now it's interesting because who's there? The disciples. Who, what has he said? Offer to them. You have little faith, or you have no faith. Where is your faith? And he's looking at this Syrophoenician Canaanite woman who's obnoxious and says, you're what it's all about. Your request is granted. And your daughter was healed at that moment. A great story. A great story. I think there's a lot of principles in here for us. Whether you're a mom or a parent or just somebody who attends, I think there's a lot of great lessons for us as a group of people. Here's the first one. We have to be really serious about this parenting thing. Don't let the world parent your kids. Don't let the school do it. Don't let the church do it. Don't let the community do it. You be serious about parenting. You be serious about raising your kids. Knowing what you want to see developed in their life. Knowing what goals you're working towards. One of the things that you see about this woman, she's serious. And she is committed. And if she has to be obnoxious, she's willing to be obnoxious in order to be able to get the attention of Jesus because she knows Jesus can help her. She is so passionate about Jesus helping her. And I think we have to get to the point as parents and as grandparents and as aunts and uncles and people in the church who see these kids on a regular basis. I think we have to be very, very serious about this issue of parenting and understand it. I think that's the lesson that you learn as a grandparent that I wish we would have known as parents is how short the time is and how quick it goes by. And instead of maximizing that time, we take it for granted, the impact that we can have on these kids. And so then when you become a grandparent, you start valuing it so much more. She's serious about it. And here's the thing, she's not going to give up. Listen, I would not want to go back to being a parent of a toddler in 2026. I don't think you could give me enough money. My wife retired last week from teaching part of her job. 38 years with kindergarten kids. I totaled it up. She has spent over 6,500 days with 5-year-olds. I can't do 20 minutes. So for those of you who are parenting young kids, you have my admiration. Because the culture in which we live, the things that they're exposed to, the demands that are put upon them, and I know there are days you want to quit. I've been there. I'll never forget, I don't remember which one of the boys it was. It was one of them. It was just driving me nuts, and I was frustrated as all get out. And Gene and I, we were having this discussion, and I said, I'm done. I said, I can't do this anymore. And my wife looked at me, and she goes, you can't retire from being a parent. I said, well, I want to. She said, you may want to, but you don't get to. And I know it's hard and it's overwhelming, and at times you feel like you want to quit. And what I would say to you is just keep going. Just keep plugging away at it. Yeah, but I make so many mistakes. Yeah, welcome to parenting. And if it helps you any, God was the first parent that was disappointed. And God did it right. God was perfect in the way he raised Adam and Eve. And you know what they did? They thumbed their nose at it and said, you know what, God, we don't want any of that. So he gets it. He understands. And what you're going through and your struggles and everything, you go, well, I made so many mistakes. Well, join the club. We all did. Grandparenting is where you get the chance to try to make it right and do it different. And I guess after that, there's great grandparenting, but I think I'm going to be too old to do anything at that point. But hang in there. Be persistent. Be like this woman that just keeps at it and keeps at it and keeps at it. And that's what you need to do as a parent. In this crazy thing that we try to do. The second idea is this idea with parents is this idea of she really focuses on Jesus. Over and over again, she keeps crying, Lord, Master. And she's a Canaanite. But she understands the significance of the spiritual needs of her kids. She's actually pleading with Jesus for a spiritual need. Her daughter is demon-possessed. And she wants that gone. And so she passionately comes to Jesus and says, you've got to help me with the spiritual needs of my child. One of my concerns in our culture is it used to be the church was kind of the center of the community, and we moved away from that. And it used to be that the church had a role in the spiritual development of the community. And we moved away from that. And what has happened now is we've shifted and it's gone from the church to the school. And the school really is now the hub of the community. And unfortunately what's happened is sports and extracurricular activities and band and dance and all of the other things consumes the life of a family. And what happens is we're offering so many good things to our kids, but what we're starting to realize, we've gotten away from the whole spiritual aspect for our kids. It's almost like church is an afterthought. Well, we'll go if we're feeling, if we don't have anything going on that Sunday, we'll go. Just the idea of a family eating together anymore is so rare. Where when I grew up, I remember coming in for dinner. It wasn't an option. And again, in that culture that we have right now, it's just so demanding and all that. And it's almost like parents like, well, you know what, we'll go to church every once in a while. They'd take care of the spiritual needs of our kids. No, you need to be asking your kids. You need to be developing your kids spiritually. You need to be teaching the Bible principles, enforcing the Bible principles. My wife is a master at this when it comes to little kids. She doesn't ask my kids, she didn't ask her grandkids or even the kids in her class, what did you do? She doesn't ask that question. The question that she asks is, what was the wise decision? What was the wise choice? Okay, you did this. What was the wise choice? The way I say it to my kids is I look at them and go, well, how'd that work for you? My favorite discussion with Alden, how'd that work for you? Not good, Grandpa. Not good. I said, yeah, so learn, buddy. There's a better way to do it. Again, over and over again, it's that idea of teaching the spiritual dynamics to them. And listen, those of you who are grandparents, let me tell you something. You have an opportunity that is so rare to be able to have that impact with your grandchildren. Teach them the spiritual values. Model it in front of them. Let them learn about Jesus from you. That's what's so important. That's what you see with this woman. She's concerned about the spiritual impact on the life of her daughter. And she's so passionate about it, she won't give it up. She just keeps coming and coming. And she's so persistent with it. The other thing is you see a humility with her. You know, I think it's interesting. We have a lot of women, great women in the Bible of faith who are named. But we don't know this woman's name. We know very little about her. All we know is she's from Canaan. That's about it. But we know she loves her daughter. And we know she's persistent. And we know that she sees Jesus as a Lord and Master. And we know that she wants what's best for her daughter, like many of you. And she doesn't give up. And she comes to him acknowledging that he is the answer to her problem. And that's what I would say to you. Listen, the one thing that you need to do is pray for your kids. You know, I mean, we raised 2 boys. You need to know, from the time, actually before they were born, we prayed for their spouse. So, you know, I'm going to have Aaron and we're going to have Alex over today. And you need to know they are an answer to almost 20. How old were you when you got married? Huh? How old were you? 25? Yeah. 20, 25 years of prayer? Huh? What? How old was he? Okay, he's 23. Yeah. This is why you are so good for him. And both of you, I warned you. I told you to run. You're stuck now. You know, but you know what? What a joy. You know, what a joy. And like I say, this is so important, folks, for us to understand. And you see it in this woman. We don't even know her name. And yet she's one of the people, can you imagine God looking at you and saying, you have great faith. By the way, isn't that what we're all after? That when we stand before God, at the judgment seat of Christ, God looks at us and says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Servant full of faith. And you see it in this woman. And I just want to challenge you because I think there's a lot of great lessons here for us. And for those of you who are parents, you have our admiration, you have our prayers. I want to encourage you, depend upon the people in this building. Develop relationship with your kids and the adults that are sitting in here. I've often said this, it takes a village to raise a kid today. And we were very fortunate in the village that was surrounded by our 2 boys. It was so funny, you know. I'd have discussions with my kids, and I'd try to be pounding something in their head. I forgot what it was, but it was something I was trying to get across JT and couldn't get across. And Earl was talking to him after church or something one Sunday. He came over and said, oh, you're not going to believe what Earl said. Earl said this. I wanted to slap him upside the head and go, I've been telling you that for 3 months, but now that Earl has said it, you know. But I'm so grateful to have those kind of people in the lives of my kids. And I can't tell you how important it is to surround yourself with godly people of wisdom and surround your kids with that and let them develop those relationships so that when they're not listening to your voice, there's another voice that's saying the same thing you're saying, and they hear it from them. And you see this woman who's so passionate and so dedicated, and she keeps coming at Jesus until she gets an answer, and finally Jesus is going to her and says, you know what? I mean, again, I'm just amazed. It's a Canaanite woman who argues with Jesus, and the disciples learn because she has more faith than the disciples who've been following him the whole time. And Jesus says, you have great faith. So I end this morning with this idea. An outsider mother from an enemy background becomes a model of faith. While insiders, his disciples, missed it. This woman challenges us to be serious about helping our kids. And we need to realize their greatest need is spiritual. And we have to depend on the grace and mercy of Jesus to ultimately guide and direct them. Let's pray. Lord, help us. Thanks for a story that helps us understand and encourages each one of us to be the kind of people that you designed for us to be. God, for the moms, for the ladies that are gathered here today, I thank you so much for the value, the impact that they have on our lives. And Lord, just as you used this incredible woman, may you use the incredible women in our lives to teach us the things that we need to do. And we give you the honor, the glory, and the praise these things we ask in your name. Amen. Let's stand together. We're going to sing the first verse